Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the JBDC's virtual biz zone for Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. My name is Sansia Campbell, and I'm from the Corporate Communications Unit, and I'm your host for this morning's session. I trust that you have been keeping safe and observing the protocols. We know how difficult and how challenging it is for us to be asked to stay inside, basically. But if it will help to get us out of this situation quicker, let us try to see how best we can observe the protocols. So this morning, as is customary, we have an interesting topic to share with you. This morning, we are going to be dealing with the importance and benefits of pensions to MSMEs, and not just to MSMEs, but to all people, really, because it is so important for us to make the necessary arrangements so that we can manage ourselves when the time comes for us to stop working. And it is so ironic that this morning, when we are going to be talking about the benefits of pensions and the importance of pensions, the Gleaner's editorial actually is tackling Jamaica's pension crisis, and it alludes to a couple of articles that were published on International Women's Day, where a 78-year-old vendor, Miss Ivy, she works every day and she'll continue until she can go no more. She won't stop because she can't afford to. She has no pension. And this is the story of no less than 60% of working Jamaicans, right? The article says that of the island's employed labor force of over 1.15 million people, only 470,000 are on the NIS as contributors. And then, of course, they have certain segments of workers that are not covered by any pension scheme, and homemakers and caregivers are high on that list. And in addition to that, the most affected person by the lack of a pension plan, the lack of a financial plan, is the female. The females will work harder, will work longer, but somehow there is nothing in place so that when we get older, we can take care of ourselves and we live longer too. You know what I mean? So this conversation this morning is very, very important. There's a dire need for pension reform in this country. And the presentation that we have this morning, while it won't be all encompassing, it will certainly put us on a path to get to the point where we are able to put some things in place and get some things going as it relates to our pension plan. So we have three presenters with us this morning, and they are from the JN Fund Managers Limited. We have with us Roxanne Wizzart. She is the assistant manager. We have Patricia Gillings, and she is from the individual retirement scheme. And then we have Jason Adams, who is from mutual funds. I hope I got that right. And they are going to be speaking with us about the importance and benefits of pensions. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Feel free to drop your comments so that they can know that you're listening, so that they know you have questions. As a reminder, the session will be recorded. And so if you know someone who wanted to be a part of it but did not get to be a part of it for whatever reason, they can always go back to the JBDC YouTube channel at jbdcjamaica.com, and they will be able to access this and every other presentation that we have done so far. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Roxanne, and then she will introduce the remainder of her colleagues. All right, so it's over to you, Roxanne.
Thank you, Sancio. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all ready to learn some more about pensions. And as Sancio had highlighted the importance of it, as we have seen the impact on persons who have not been able to prepare for it. So this morning, I'll just be going through an overview of pensions in general, and then Patricia Gillens will focus on the JN Individual Retirement Scheme, and followed by Jason Adams, who will speak to us about an additional avenue in which you can prepare for your retirement. All right, so let me just share the presentation. All right, so the outline of my presentation, I'll be focusing on what is a pension plan governance, benefits, some calculations, and I'll also give you some tips. So what is a pension? Essentially, a pension is income that you receive after the end of your formal working years. So it is something to supplement you, to take care of you once you stop working professionally, or even in just a formal arrangement, because you often find persons that will retire, but they may still do part-time jobs, or they might volunteer and so on. So it just means that you're no longer working formally or consistently. And a pension plan is the arrangement that provides you with that income. So we have two main types of pension plans here in Jamaica, and that's an approved retirement scheme, which is usually offered by a life insurance company or an investment management company. So as I had mentioned, we have at Jamaica National, we have the Jamaica National Individual Retirement Scheme, which Patricia will give more details on later. There are also superannuation funds that are normally provided through an employer. Now, as an MSME, it depends on the size of your organization. It may benefit to have a superannuation fund, or it may not. So it just depends on the different variables in your particular organization. A superannuation fund does take it can take a longer time to set up, and it can be more involved, legal arrangements, creating a trust deed, registering with FSC, and so on. But it is still possible for you to create one specific to your company and create the own rules and intricacies that you'd want for your staff. Under superannuation funds, we have two main types of funds. There's a defined contribution and defined benefit. Now, as the name, how it works is exactly as the name suggests. So a defined contribution plan, it means that the amount that the member contributes is defined, it is specific. And currently in Jamaica, we have the opportunity to contribute up to 20% of our gross income to a pension plan. So in that case, it can be anywhere from, typically the minimum is 5%, so anywhere from 5 to that 20% can be contributed. For the defined benefit, it is no longer a popular type of arrangement because it can get expensive, because what it means is that when the persons retire, what they would get as an income is fixed. And so depending on what that benefit should be, will determine how much needs to be contributed now or at the time of their retirement. So that's why I mentioned it can get a little expensive. So most superannuation funds are no longer accepting new members, but the plan still exists within Jamaica. Now, pension plans are governed by the FSC and the TAJ. Now, all plans, all retirement schemes or superannuation funds are required to be registered with the FSC in Jamaica. and they are to be approved also by TAJ. TAJ is Tax Administration Jamaica. Each pension plan are also required to have trustees, and these are the persons that are really responsible for the governance in terms of how the plan is administered. Now, they may not be involved with the day-to-day handling or our administration processes and so on, but they are the ones that ultimately the FSC or TAJ would contact should anything go wrong, or any issues any member may have and so on. So the trustees are ultimately responsible. So there are several types of trustees. So each plan has a sponsor. So whether the plan is set up by the life insurance company or the investment management company, or by the employer, those three, whichever of those parties would be considered the sponsor. And so there would be trustees that that are responsible for the sponsor's portfolio, so to speak. And then as members of the plan, you would also have trustees that represent the members and so on. So they're specific to the type of parties involved. There are trustees for each party. Each pension plan also is required to have a trust deed and rules. Now, there are some general things that are going to be a part of all pension plans, as of course, because the idea is to provide an income for persons when they retire. But there might be unique things to a plan. For example, how much you're required to contribute. If it is one that is provided by the employer, how much the employer is required to contribute. If the person leaves the company, if it's a company-sponsored plan, what benefit they'll get. If someone dies, what benefit will be paid out, and so on. So each plan, the trust deed and rules will specify those things. And this is important that if you are currently part of your plan, that you're familiar with the rules of your plan. Now, each plan should also have a member's handbook, and it is simply the trust deed and rules in simpler language, because the trust deed and rules may have some legal terms or jargons that may not be so familiar, but the member's handbook will now explain it in simpler language for you to understand. And once you're a member of a plan, you should be given a handbook or should have access to a handbook so that you can get familiar with the rules, as I had mentioned. So let's get into some of the benefits. All right, so the first one I've highlighted here is that the contributions are tax deferred. Now, currently in Jamaica, we have the opportunity to contribute up to 20%, as I had mentioned, but that 20% can come out of your income before any tax or other statutory deductions are taken. And this is a very great benefit, because if you think about it, if you should want to do something on your own, you have to consider, outside of your gross salary, you have to consider NHT benefits or education tax benefits, income tax benefit if you're paying income tax, and so on. And then you'd have to contribute after. However, if you're part of a pension arrangement, then you have the opportunity to have those contributions go towards a pension plan prior to any of those deductions. Of course, as the purpose of the pension plan is to provide an income when you retire, that is one of the main benefits as well. As Sansi had shared at the start of the presentation, that 78-year-old woman that has to continue working until the very last day, until she's no longer able to. So what the pension plan allows you to do is to save, so that when you do get older, you have that opportunity. You can choose to stop working if you want to, or to supplement. Maybe you won't work as much hours, or you may do something differently. That's a time when persons normally say, they pursue their passions because they were working hard all these years, so now they can do something fun. So the pension plan can enable you to do that, to have more freedom to do things that you didn't get the chance to do while you were working. Another benefit is that the monies that you contribute now to the pension arrangement are now being invested, of course, so that you can continue earning. Now, the fact that it is now a larger pool, that not only opens up greater opportunities for how the monies can be invested, but based on the laws of the land as well, the income that is earned from those investments are not taxed. So it is an even greater potential for you to earn on the monies that are contributed in the pension arrangement. So say, for example, we know the stock market is a thing right now, and maybe not so much in the last year because of the pandemic, but we know prior to that, Jamaica had the top performing market, I believe 2 years in a row. But say, for example, you had invested in a stock personally on your own. If you get a dividend from that, it is subject to a 15% tax. However, if the pension planner invests in that same stock and the dividend is paid, no tax would be taken from that dividend. So it enables the pension plan to earn more than you would on your own. Now, if it is a benefit that your employer provides, it can be considered additional compensation for you. So I know the target here today is MSMEs, and so it may not, it can be an additional benefit that you as employer either provide to your staff, or you as a staff can maybe consider asking your employer to provide for you, depending on what the arrangements are currently. It is essentially more money that you can get, it's just not immediately. And I think that's a great benefit if your employer can contribute for you, or even if they are not able to contribute, if they have the facility, create it in such a way that they can enable the deductions to come directly from your salary, because that will at least alleviate some of the burdens from you. You don't have to think about setting up standing order, or you don't have to think about withdrawing the money, depositing it somewhere, and so on. If they can arrange that for it to be taken from your salary directly, that would also be good. But also, if they contribute on your behalf, it's an even greater benefit to you in that way. I have also highlighted briefly here death benefit, which if you're part of a pension plan, and we know there are uncertainties in life, you may pass before you actually retire. However, should that happen, a benefit can still be paid out to a beneficiary once you've assigned a beneficiary to your plan. And in terms of a termination benefit, now, depending on the type of plan that you have, if you are part of a superannuation fund and you may leave that employer, you still have the opportunity to continue the pension arrangement by transferring it to another plan and continue earning in that way. So I'm just going to highlight an example here of how contributing to the pension plan can affect your salary. As Sansia would have also mentioned earlier, we know about the employed population is roughly 1.1 million. However, the Minister of Finance had also mentioned last year that only about 300,000 of those employed actually pay income tax. So yes, the larger population is not paying income tax, but there is still a benefit should you contribute to the plan, because as I had mentioned, NHT and education tax is would be taken out after that. So in this scenario, I have shown someone only receiving 1.2 annually, so approximately 100,000 monthly. And if you were to contribute what is, I had mentioned, the typical minimum of 5%, what that would look like. So I hope that you're able to see clearly. However, in the first, consider the middle column, where it's at 0%, if you don't contribute, generally, these are the main deductions that will be taken from your salary. So we have NIS, which is 3%, education tax, which is 2.25% of the statutory income, and that is the income, your gross income minus the NIS or any other pension benefit. And of course, you also have NHT. These are the three main deductions that are taken from your salary. And that shows that you would have a net pay of 92,817.50 cents. However, if you choose to contribute a minimum of 5% from your salary to a pension plan, it will change the amount, yes, that you take home net, but it also shows you that you're essentially paying less taxes as well. And that is really from the education tax, because as I had mentioned, it's the tax is now being calculated on statutory income, which is your gross minus any pension arrangements. I'm not sure if you're able to see on the right, based on all this setup. I'm actually seeing the windows here, but I hope you're able to see on the right. It shows a summary of the changes in over a month, but also over the year, the tax savings that you would have. Because I know there's also some persons would say that the government takes too much in taxes and doesn't pay it very well and doesn't make good use of it. So I mean, if you can save that way so that you're not only putting towards something that will benefit you, but you have the opportunity to save in that way, as I've mentioned. All right, I'm now showing an example of someone who would be paying income tax, and that is using a salary of 200,000 monthly. So similarly, contributing at a rate of 5%, that person would now be contributing 10,000 towards their pension monthly. Now, even though as it's similar, it would have a similar effect. And I'm highlighting that even though the person is contributing $10,000, the difference in your net pay is only about $7,200. So it doesn't equate essentially less that you'll be taking home. And as I mentioned, this is one of the great benefits because it is indeed taken before any other tax and statutory deductions. So if you fall into any of these categories, which I suppose you are if you're working, consider that it's not too large a sacrifice because ultimately you're planning for your future self. So do the numbers, if you're anywhere in these ranges or so on, you can have an idea of how it would impact your take-home pay. Because I know that's one of the main concerns with persons is that they think they'll be taking home less, so they'll have less to spend now. But remember, it's to have a greater benefit in the future as well. So one of the main parts that persons speak about, try to consider as well is, okay, what will I get at the end of the day? So I'm saving towards this retirement, but what will I actually get? Now, depending on the plan that you have, the plan that you're part of, sorry, it will determine your retirement age. Your retirement age will be specified in the trust deed and rules, as I had mentioned before. So some plans, the retirement age might be 60, some it might be 65. It may be a different age for males, it may be a different age for females, and so on. So just depending on which plan. I believe nationally, it's considered as 65 now for both male and female. Next, early retirement is typically 10 years prior to what that normal retirement age is. So using an example of 65, if that's a normal retirement age, early retirement can be facilitated anywhere from age 55 to age 64. There's also the option of late retirement, which is typically 5 years after normal retirement. So again, if it's normal retirement is 65, anywhere from 66 to age 70, late retirement can be facilitated as well. There is also the option of ill-health retirement. Now, should you become incapacitated, whether physically or mentally, and unable to work, a pension plan is able to also provide you with an ill-health retirement benefit. Now, the option, the actual payment that you get at that point will be the same as if you took normal early or late retirement. It's just that the circumstances in which you're retiring would be based on your health only. So this can happen at any age. If it's at 35, if it's at 45, it can be taken outside of your age is not a factor. It's just simply based on your health, which we know for some persons, this is also a great benefit. And some persons have been in these situations, but they essentially don't have any options right now because they may not have had personal savings, and they were also not part of a pension plan. But if you join one, and should this be a part of your future, that's an option available to you. All right, so let's focus a little more now on the actual benefits. Now, these are the typical options. There are more, but these are the main ones that are typically provided by an annuity provider. So upon retirement, whether normal, late, early, ill health, depending on the value of your account, an annuity is then purchased to pay out these benefits to you. Now, currently in Jamaica, we have two main annuity providers, and that is Sagicor, Life Jamaica, and Guardian Life. Their NCBO is a part of it, but because we know of the merger, it is essentially just Guardian now. So they typically, upon retirement, depending on the value of your account, as I mentioned, the administrators would request quotations from these annuity providers, and they will show you, those quotations will show you what you can get based on the value of your account, based on your age and so on, and the benefits in each of these categories. So 0-year guarantee simply means that whatever benefits they are going to pay you, it will be guaranteed for your life. So if you're the person who's a member of the plan and you're going to retire now, for your life only, a payment is guaranteed until the day you die. 5-year guarantee, similar, it's for your life. However, should you pass before 60 months, they would still pay out the difference. So 60 payments would be guaranteed for a 5-year guarantee retirement benefit. So again, upon retirement, if you make that selection, you'd also assign a beneficiary. So should you pass prior to those 60 payments being made, the difference will be paid out to your beneficiary. And similarly for the 10-year guarantee, 120 payments would be required to be paid out, because pensions are typically paid monthly, similar to how we get our salaries now. 50% joint life and survivorship, what that means is that, say for example, the option you selected, you're being paid 100,000 per month. Should you pass, the person that survives you, which is typically your spouse, would get 50,000 for the remainder of their life. And similarly for the 100% life and survivor, if you were getting 100,000, they would get 100,000. Should you pass until they die as well. The last option I've listed here is a full commutation. So depending on when you have started your pension plan, or depending on how it has performed, maybe based on the contributions and so on, the accumulated value at the time of your retirement may not be enough to purchase an annuity. Because as I mentioned, the pension plans are also governed by Tax Administration Jamaica, and based on the Income Tax Act, should an annuity be paying you less than half of minimum wage, it is recommended that instead of getting that monthly pension, you just get a lump sum payment. So that's what a full commutation would be. You would just get a lump sum payout upon your retirement. Now, this may seem like, oh, it's just a one-off payment, but it can still help, because when you get that lump sum payment, you depending on the amount, you may not have to use it all at once, and then you can then invest in other arrangements so that it lasts you a little longer as well. As I mentioned briefly, there are defined benefit plans, and though I say it's not one that persons would typically opt for now, I just wanted to highlight how the benefit in that is normally determined. And it is typically based on a formula, which is a pensionable salary times pensionable service times an accrual rate. And the accrual rate is determined specifically to the pension plan, but it goes anywhere up to 2%. And at the bottom there, I just show you the formula for that. So that's just to have an idea of how defined benefit pension plans are, what they pay out upon retirement. Excuse me. So this is an illustration now, using someone starting their pension plan at age 30. Now, using a retirement age of age 65, as I mentioned, that can be considered a national retirement age now. And this may be a little, I'd say an average return of 11%. It's not unrealistic, Some can do, yes, it might be lower, but it can also be higher. I've seen pension plans that has consistently earned in double digits. So it is possible, just depending on which plan you are a part of and how the funds are invested. So just an average return of 11%. And so this person starting at age 30 would be contributing for 35 years. At a rate of $10,000 monthly, that's an overall input of 4.2 million. However, as you see, over the 35 years, the balance has grown to 146 million. Now, of course, over 35 years, inflation would have taken up some of that. So the value, yes, 146 million is a large sum, but it don't think it's so ridiculous. It is very possible in 35 years. Now, upon retirement, as I had mentioned, they are options. So I show here what the options may look like. These are just for illustrative purposes. So it's just to give an idea of what the options look like, as I've said. So upon retirement, you have the opportunity to get a 25% tax-free lump sum from your total balance. So using the same example of the 146 million, if this is the accumulated value of your account upon retirement, you have an option to get 36 million lump sum. So that's tax-free, you can get as a benefit. However, that impacts the amount that you would get on a monthly basis, as you see in the scenarios here. So based on how I would have explained the options, the 0-year guarantee, 10-year guarantee, joint life and survivorship, and so on, you can see how, depending on the option you select, the amount you would get varies. And of course, it also varies if you take that lump sum as opposed to if you don't. Hope I haven't moved too fast. Just going to the next one, showing an example of early retirement, because I do know that is also one of the main benefits persons think of. You know, they want to stop working early, as I had mentioned, so they can do the things that you don't really get to do while working full time. However, if you should take early retirement, it is something to consider carefully, because this option, as I've shown, it's 10 less years of compounding. So instead of having that 146 million that you could have had, it would now be 37 million if you retire at age 55. So that's only 25 years of contributing. However, it is still depending on, of course, what your lifestyle is like and so on at that point, it may still make sense for you. So I'm just showing you the option of how the difference would be from normal retirement to early retirement. So the options, of course, are the same as I had mentioned. It's just the value of your account that really makes the difference as to what you would get at 55 as opposed to 65. So you can still take the lump sum if you want or not. You still have the same options of 0-year guarantee, 5-year guarantee, 50% joint life and survivorship, and so on. And as I mentioned, I've only used these scenarios here, but there may be more depending on the, excuse me, on the plan that you're a part of, because some pension plan specifies other benefits that can be payable to you as well. I've also highlighted the difference if you do late retirement. Now, persons are living longer. We know that. I believe the average age, when I looked recently for Jamaica, persons live up to age 79, I believe, and women do live longer than men generally. So persons know when they get to 65, they actually, some don't want to retire, and it's not because they can't afford to, but they actually still enjoy what they do, so they may consider working. So it may be something you may choose to do when you get to that point, and you may consider late retirement. So it shows that if you continue to contribute for the additional 5 years, of course, the money is continuing to earn, the balance can now grow to 280 million at that point. And again, the options are the same, but it shows you how great that 5%, because again, it's compounded. Now, some persons have asked if this is really possible. Now, we know persons, this is based on consistent contributions. Now, we know your employer may not remain the same over your entire working life, but if you're part of a retirement scheme, not because your employer changed means that you have to stop contributing. You can continue, and that's one of the benefits of being a part of a retirement scheme. And also, even if you are part of a superannuation fund at your current employer, you can transfer the benefit. And so the larger the balance is, the more, if the fund continues to earn it, in this example at 11%, that's a larger balance that the interest is being accumulated on. So it is very possible that these balances could be what your future will, depending on your age now and the amount you're contributing consistently. The main thing is just to be consistent with those contributions. So I had also mentioned briefly as well a death benefit, but also I'd like to now look at the termination benefit. Now, if it's a superannuation fund that you're currently a part of, or if you as MSME now would like to consider for a benefit to your staff or within your company, there is also typically a clause or a rule that determines what benefit each member will get based on the employer contributions. Now, each plan, as I'd mentioned, has their own rules. So some companies can start as early as 1 year, where a portion of the employer's contribution are guaranteed to the member. Some plans may have it at 3 years, some plans have it at 5, some at 10. But depending on whatever your plan is, if you're part of a plan now, refer to your rules and so you can know what that is. Or if you'd like to consider this as a benefit for your employees as well, as I've mentioned, consider how long you'd want your employee to work there before they're entitled to that benefit. Because again, it's additional compensation that you're paying them. So we know persons may leave organizations for very number of reasons. It might be by their choice or based on circumstances. Their post may become redundant and they have to move on. However, depending on if the employer contributions are vested or not. So it's essentially what it means. If the employer is contributing on your behalf, for example, at a 5% rate, if you are vested, that means that even if you leave the company, you still have a benefit available to you upon retirement. If you're not vested, there will be no benefit from the employer's contributions upon retirement. That's simply what the vested and non-vested means. However, in a retirement scheme, all contributions are vested. And again, that is one of the benefits of the retirement scheme. All contributions are vested. So whether you leave a particular company, the benefit remains in that plan for you to have upon retirement. All right, so I'll just leave you a few tips before Patricia gets into the retirement scheme specifically. It's to start as early as you can. It's better to start today. We still have time today. If you're not currently part of a plan, you can get involved. You can sign up and start the enrollment process for a pension plan or retirement scheme, depending on the situation for you. If you're not in a pensionable post currently, or if your employer does not offer that, you can still sign up for an individual retirement scheme. The next tip I'd leave with you is to maximize your contributions. As I had mentioned, we can contribute up to 20%. So even if it's to start at 5% and gradually work your way up until you're able to maximize, because the more you save now is the higher or greater your benefits will be upon retirement. And it's also recommended to save for emergencies separately. Now, we know situations that I mentioned, if you are made redundant, for example, and of course, you're not out of a job, how are you going to survive for a few months? You may want to take that refund from your pension plan, but it is not recommended to take it because remember that the idea of the pension arrangement is for you to have that money when you stop working. So yes, you're not working currently, but it would be best if that money may not be used for this immediate use, and maybe if you have other savings, you can use that instead so that it can continue earning that tax-free benefit that tax-free interest in the pension arrangement. And there's also supplementing it with other savings, which is what Jason will speak to you more about in terms of having other options outside of the pension arrangement, because if you're already maxing out at 20%, but you can afford to contribute or invest more, it is of course encouraged for you to do so. Now, when you're a member of a pension plan, each year you're required to get an annual statement. As required by FSC, an active member of a plan should receive at least an annual statement. Now, this simply shows not only your account balance, but it should also show you your biographic information that the administrator has. And this is important because one, not only will it determine when your retirement age will be, because of course it's based on your age. So if your date of birth, you need to ensure your date of birth is correct, spelling of your name, spelling of your beneficiary's name, that ensure a beneficiary is assigned if you would want a beneficiary to be assigned. We know there can be difficulties in paying out benefits upon death if no beneficiary is assigned to a policy or plan. And also to ensure that it remains current. You know, life changes and so on. So maybe a beneficiary you had last year may not be who you want the beneficiary to be this year and so on. So it's important that if you are part of a plan that you review the statement, or when you do become a member of a plan that you review your statements so that everything can be how you would want it to be should something happen to you prior to you getting that retirement benefit. So this is the end of my general presentation. I know there might be questions in the chat. I'm not seeing it currently, but I saw some highlights and so on. We will take the questions at the end when everything is wrapped up. I'm now going to hand over to Patricia Gillings, who will focus primarily on the Jamaica National Individual Retirement Scheme that is offered through JN Life. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. Good morning to you all. It is always a good thing to invest your time into knowing more about what should happen after your retirement starts. Now, one of the things that I did say to Sansia that I was not going to do any presentation, but I think I will start by saying, plan now to retire at ease. JN Life has a suite of products for wealth protection. We have our typical life insurance plans, critical illness, family indemnity, and out of a better word, the burial plan. But today we focus on the JN retirement scheme. And at JN Life, one of the things that we want to advise is that our scheme, Roxanne was very comprehensive in her presentation. So technically, I will focus more on the how to, because it is important to know what do I do in my company. So you perhaps will have persons in your office that you may not have a organized superannuation fund, but certainly you can assist your employees with salary deduction to ensure that everybody gets on board. So you may not have that organized plan at your office, but what we want to say to you is give your employees the opportunity to have a salary deduction so as to the benefits of the pension plan is actually to help you to reduce your taxation, but also to plan for a stream of income after retirement. Persons should be over 18 years old. And as Roxanne indicated, you can have early retirement, the normal retirement at 65, or late retirement. For the enrollment procedure, we have an application process, which quite simply would ask for basic information. A valid government ID, which is your passport, your driver's license, or your voter's ID. your TRN, your national, their NIS card, your last 3 pay slips. Now, if it is that persons are not consistent with getting a pay slip from their employer, we ask that a letter is provided by the employer verifying the salary that the persons get. Once there is a set up from your account or from salary deduction, because again, we encourage persons to have it through salary deduction because you can reduce your taxation. And it was indicated by the illustrations shown this morning how beneficial it is to have your pension deducted before your actual deductions. A proof of address is very important so that we need to determine where it is that the individual lives and the consistency of their residence. If it is there is no bill, because a number of persons actually pay bills, but they don't have it in their names, we can have an address verification form to allow persons to have their justice of the peace, attorney at law, minister of religion, or other public figures to show that they actually reside at the premises. If you wish your pension to be deducted from your salary, there is a tax exemption form that is completed, and as employers, you will give your employees the access to your TRN and your basic information so that when the tax admin recognizes that your submission of taxes excludes a certain amount of funds, it will be obvious that it is because you have employees contributing to the pension, an individual pension scheme, retirement scheme, and that is where the exemption would connect. Should you not be employed, because again, we anticipate that persons will always be working over the life of their retirement contribution. However, if it is that persons are self-employed, then there is a statement of affairs form that is completed, or if it is for MSMEs, you may have your last financial statement, which is something that you can show to do it. If it is that you do not have a verification to show that you are self-employed, we also have a self-employment verification form, or your business registration certificate can be used as an additional activity. This process, I keep saying to persons when I have the discussion with them, is that half an hour of time determines what happens in your retirement. We know that with everything, persons are busy, but thankfully things are digitized. What we encourage persons to do, stop, get yourself organized, and as small as 5% is a start. Just an example, I just spoke with someone who just started to work, just left university, who indicated to me that, boy, that's too much money. So I used, as illustrated this morning, that if you contribute for the life of 35 years, you can see the benefits of the sacrifice that you make today. And as early as you can, that is how you should benefit from retirement. Just make the decision and work within the means. Once you're enrolled, you have the option of determining how you would want your funds to be invested. If you are risk averse and you really just need to ensure that whatever I put in, I just want what you will give me, then you can determine that that is how you want your funds invested. But if you are a risk taker, you can make that decision as well to say, 90% of my funds you can invest into stocks and bonds, you can invest in equity, what you require to ensure that I can maximize my savings with you. Contributions are made from your gross. And so a number of persons may think that their salary is not huge enough. What is important is that we determine and define what is your gross, whether it's a fluctuating figure or fixed figure, and start the process. I I'm very pleased to know that JN Life Insurance, who holds the funding and the application process for the individual retirement scheme, we collaborate with our JN fund managers, and we give our clients the best that is offered. And so I encourage persons, I'm here this morning, I won't give you too much information because everything as it relates now is a one-on-one that you can determine how best can I invest for my retirement. And so I will make myself available, and as soon as you wish, I can have that discussion one-on-one with you. I want to thank Stancia for the invitation, but most importantly, I'd like to thank Roxanne for including me this morning, because it is certainly a learning experience for all of us. And as I said, plan now and retire at ease. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia. Okay, Jason should be sharing with us now an additional way to prepare for that for your retirement if you have excess beyond that 20% to do so. You ready, Jason?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Hello, good morning all. Just 1 second while I share my screen. Okay, could you confirm that you're seeing it, Roxanne?
Yes, we are.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm just going to go on how you could plan for your future, you know, using investments as a complement to your pension. So just a little background and history about JN Fund Managers. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of the JN Group and a licensed security dealer and full service investment manager domiciled in Jamaica. We were founded in 1996 as investment managers, and we were renamed in in the year 2000 to JN Fund Managers. We're regulated by the Financial Services Commission and the Bank of Jamaica, and we're also a member of the Stock Exchange. And we provide the following service offerings: stock brokerage, mutual funds, government bonds repurchase agreements, pension fund management, and administration services. So I say this to say that JN Fund Managers historically was known as a more boutique organization that probably catered to, you know, more high net worth individuals and corporations. But now we've expanded our line of services to be more inclusive towards the general population. So I'm just going to go through initially what you want to think of when you're getting into an investment. So before you start an investment, you want to think of 3 things. What are your financial goals? What is your investment time horizon? And how much risk are you willing to take, right? Your financial goals could be anything tangible, from you're looking to save towards retirement 20 years down the line. You're looking to save towards your children's education 10 years down the line. You're maybe looking for a house 5 years down the line, right? Unlike pensions, where you're saving towards your retirement, or you expect the availability of those funds upon retirement, investments, you can save towards a particular objective, whether short, medium, or long term. So, you can have that flexibility when allocating your portfolio. And then when you think of your investment goal, you want to attach a time horizon to that. That is very important, because the time horizon dictates what type of investments you can get into. If you have a short time horizon, the investments that you should get into is very different from a person who has time on their hands. I'll go into this a little bit further. And then thirdly, you have to determine how much risk you're willing to take. You have to determine if you're risk averse, you're risk neutral, or you're risk loving, right? Because that also will determine the type of assets you get invested into as well. So once you think about these 3 goals, and you have an answer to them, then you're ready to make the step of investing. You speak to a financial advisor, and then you're on your way to financial independence. So the main products we offer at JN Fund Managers, or flagship products, are mutual funds, right? And for those persons who don't know what a mutual fund is, I'll explain right now. It's essentially a collective investment scheme where a group of investors or a pool of investors put their funds together, and a portfolio manager uses those pool funds to go out on the market to buy securities. Now, these securities would otherwise be outside of the reach of the average investor, which is why it's ideal to use this large pool of securities to do so. And they can make moves that the average individual investor wouldn't be able to make on their own, right? So that's essentially how it works. And these securities are assets that the portfolio manager invests in. They also appreciate or depreciate or generate interest. And that is essentially how the fund earns, because the fund has a price, and the price is essentially determined by the value of all the securities divided by the number of investors, right? So if the value of securities increases, the price of the fund will essentially increase. So our mutual funds pretty much have a range of risk. They're risk adjusted in terms of the offerings. So on the higher end of the risk spectrum, we have equity, right? Our equity fund is consisted mostly of stocks on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, with a little bit of diversification with funds on the US stock, on the New York Stock Exchange as well. The diversified funds has some equity components as well as some fixed income components. The US Global Fixed Income Fund, that is essentially our dollar bonds that you wouldn't be able to, get that exposure to outside of the fund. Guys, are you hearing me? I'm getting a message that my internet connection is unstable. Okay, I guess everyone is good. Okay.
Yes, Jason, we're hearing you.
Okay, good. And the fixed income fund is generally instruments that are, within 3 to 5 years maturity, corporate notes, government securities, and government bonds. Fairly low risk instruments, but still carries, a slight risk to it. And then our most conservative funds are our money market funds, which are in blue. And you can see we have both the US money market and the Jamaican dollar money market. These funds are essentially for preservation of capital. You're not going to see any great interest rates being generated from these funds, but they seek, what the investor that is invested in it is seeking liquidity, safety. They're conservative, don't want to take much risk. Likely they don't have much cash flow and are probably going to depend on your investment in the short term, right? So why invest in mutual funds now? So one of the number one reasons is because of diversification. Granted that mutual funds are essentially a basket of securities, you are inherently diversified. Usually the mutual funds they have a mandate not to invest in a particular security by more than 10%. It is actively managed by a portfolio manager that does the buying and selling of instruments, which brings me to my second point, and that is that it's managed by an experienced team. So typically when you're investing in, say, stocks on the stock market, it's a little bit hard to get that advice, that day-to-day advice you need to make your decisions. So here comes a mutual fund where an experienced portfolio manager essentially makes those decisions on your behalf. So you can buy into the fund and you don't have to worry about doing any research or due diligence on the market. You essentially are buying into a fund with a certain objective and mandate. And it is essentially passive in the sense that you don't have to do the buying and selling. So that's a big advantage for especially novice investors. Third, the access is that it's a fairly liquid fund. You can add to it ad hoc, or you can also pull from it, right? Notwithstanding the 90-day holding period, which is in place for certain stocks. After that 90-day holding period, you are free to make redemptions as you see fit. I wouldn't recommend it because obviously it would eat into your capital, your future interest earnings. But there's an option as well, God forbid you have an emergency. And then you can also add to it. It's very simple to add to it. You don't have to wait till maturity. Investment doesn't have a maturity period, essentially. It's pretty much just keeps on rolling year over year and compounding. And then another reason is that there are lower fees. When you're buying stocks or you're buying bonds, usually the investment house is collecting either a spread or a commission on each transaction that you do. Now, those costs add up. With a mutual fund, all of that pretty much goes on in the back end, where a portfolio manager does all the buying and selling in large amounts. So essentially, they can benefit from what I like to call wholesale rates, rather than buying little pieces here or there. So that essentially translates to more interest earnings for you, the investor. And on top of that, GN fund managers have some of the lowest fees when it comes to mutual funds in the market. Our fees typically don't exceed 1%, or money market fees, or the management fee that is 0.5% for money market funds and 1% for the rest of the funds. Now, this fee, you don't even see, it's not even reflected in your returns. It essentially is levied on the entire fund at the year end. So it's not included in any of the year-to-date or 12-month returns that you see. So the fee is relatively low, and you pretty much benefit from that because you're pretty much have more principal rolling over to compound. And, with the mutual funds, because of the flexibility and the liquidity of it, you can invest incrementally, right? You can, we have a product called the AIP, which is a complementary offering to the mutual fund, which essentially allows you to contribute to your mutual fund in a way that a salary reduction or a standing order would go to a deposit account, right? So the benefit to this is that it kind of fosters the habit of regular investing, which is what a lot of people don't do. They put down money, put down like a $50,000 and just forget about it. But ideally, you want to add to that if possible and when possible, because you're actually, building up your capital base, which will compound, and you'll see much greater returns in the future. All right. So this one here, the automatic investment program, you can get invested for as little as $10,000 per month into any of these funds. Now, this is a benefit essentially because typically to get into our funds, you need at least $50,000, except for the money market fund. So you can essentially get access to these funds via that standing order for as little as $10,000 per month, right? So why would you want to invest in this way? Why would you want to invest incrementally than in a lump sum, essentially? So one, as I mentioned before, it's a disciplined way of saving or investing. You're doing it in a structured manner over a time period. And because of that, the risk is actually reduced, because when you're buying, a lot of times people will buying at the wrong times. People see the market, it's going well. Back in the beginning of 2020, the market was, the world towards the end of 2019, going into 2020, the market was doing very well, showing double-digit returns. It was then that a lot of people decided to get invested when the market was actually at its peak, right? So, because of that, people went in with lump sums, and then when the market fell, obviously they would lose some of the principal that they invested, right? So with the AIP now, you are actually incrementally buying little by little every month. Therefore, you're buying the assets or the investment at various price points, right? So that can allow for on average, a much lower cost of buying the purchase security than, say, investing in a lump sum, right? And as I said before, It prevents bad market timing, because that is what people try to do. They sit down on a stock, they say, I don't want to buy it yet because I'm waiting for it to hit this price, or you don't want to sell it because you're holding up for this price. It's an emotional reaction. So, this investing in this way kind of eliminates that emotional aspect from investing, and it's much better for you in the sense that you are reducing your risk and you're buying at lower prices. So just an idea of what an AIP or a contribution to your investment portfolio regularly can look after 15 years. Sorry, my apologies for that. So this is using a starting amount of $0 with a fairly modest return of 9%, which you should be able to easily surpass if you invest in like a high returning aggressive instrument such as an equity fund. And you're contributing about 20,000 per month, right? After 15 years, you can look at the total contributions right here. You'd have contributed 3.6 million. However, in interest, you'd have generated just over 3.7 million. That's after 15 years, right? So it kind of just paints the picture of how compounding can work in your favor. All you need to do is give it time, patience, and discipline, right? Because you will eventually out-earn your contributions given enough time. And I'm going to actually demonstrate this in the next slide, where I want you to take a note, first of all, at the end balance of 15 years. It's right here, 7.3 million. This is after 20 years, just 5 more years. In 5 more years, you have almost doubled that 7 million. It's 12.7 million in just 5 years. So yes, it took 5 years to get to the 7 million, but it only took 5 more years after that to get to the 12 million. So as you can see, compound interest is, as they call it, the 8th world wonder. It really benefits you in the sense that as long as you give it time, once you reach a certain point, it is going to be generating interest on a very sizable amount of principal. So just give it patience, time, and discipline, and believe me, you will be on the road to financial freedom quicker than you know it. And then this is just general funds and their return rates and the current prices. The return rate on the right is the 12-month growth rate as at March 19th, 2021. So essentially, this growth rate is how much the fund returned from the corresponding period last year, right? So as you can see, stocks took a beating, but nonetheless, the 12-month return was still 9.66, although the fund just relatively recovered a bit. Last year it ended at about negative around 15, but it has since then recovered, and now we're seeing where it's at a 9.66 growth rate. But bear in mind that these aggressive funds at the top, you ideally want to be in for a longer time period. Remember me telling you that, with the more aggressive funds comes more risk. But with more risk, if you give yourself more time, that risk is actually lowered. Because with the equity, there's a lot of short to medium-term volatility that is up and down movement pricement of the stock. But in the long term, it is one of the best returning assets on the market, better than even real estate, essentially. And then lower down, you can see the returns or global US dollar fixed income fund, 10.1% return. That is excellent for a US dollar assets, essentially. Global fixed income fund, 5.4, and the local money market funds essentially keep you in line with inflation. Those funds are more designated, as I said, for preservation of capital. They're not intended for aggressive interest rates. A lot of persons who get invested are retirees or persons who can't afford to lose what they have and are very risk averse. But essentially, these are a suite of products, and if you speak to a financial advisor, we wouldn't necessarily just recommend one. If you're starting a portfolio, you could recommend 2 or 3 different portfolios to further diversify your investment portfolio. And set you up according to your investment goals and needs. So last but not least, there's peace of mind with investing with Jane Fund Managers. We are here, we're full service providers, and we tend to be very responsive to our clients, and our funds, at least any 3 of them on any given day, are in the top 3 funds on the market. So with that being said, I open the floor up to any questions.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Jason, Patricia, and Roxanne. You have indeed provided us with some really valuable information. If you could just unshare your screen though, Jason, so that we can jump into the question and answer segment. No problem. Right. So I know that there are 2 questions that I've seen in the chat. I'm not sure who it's addressed to, but Sandra McLeish is asking, grateful if you could remind us the difference between vested and non-vested, and what happens to the funds if we are terminated from our jobs for a while.
Okay, I will be taking that question. So it depends on the type of arrangement. So if it is a retirement scheme, should you leave that job, there's no impact really, because you can still, the monies will remain in the fund and you can still continue to contribute. Sorry, the monies can remain until you get another job to continue contributing. If it's a superannuation fund that was provided by your employer, upon your termination, you should be presented with some options. So as I had mentioned, depending on the type of plan, meaning the rules of the plan, it will specify what those options that are available to you are. So typically for the superannuation fund, you are contributing, the employer is contributing. You typically can get a cash refund of your contributions. However, there are some plans that stipulate that if you take that cash refund, you forfeit the employer's portion that you may have been entitled to. And I believe you also asked about the vesting. So say, for example, the plan that you're a part of had a 3-year vesting. You were employed there for 3 years or even 4 years. Let's use 4 years. That means whatever the employer contributed on your behalf up to that point, you're eligible to get that benefit. However, the employer's portion is not generally available as a cash refund. So what some of the typical options are, and again, it's generally because each plan is specific, but for the most part, you should be able to either keep the monies in the fund, that's the employer portion, and your portion, because as I mentioned, it's not recommended that you take that money. So you could leave the money in the fund and it continue earning until you retire. Or you should have the option to transfer to another plan. So say you're working at company A, you are terminated for whatever reason, whether it was by choice or they asked you to leave. When you go to job B and they have a pension arrangement, you can transfer it over to that pension arrangement, or you could enroll on your own to the retirement scheme and you transfer those monies into the retirement scheme. And that is what I was saying. It can be a benefit to transfer because again, it's a larger sum where the interest is being earned on it. So, but it's very plan specific, and that is why I gave general overviews in the presentation, because the option in one plan may be different from the option in another. But I would say read the option form carefully, because I have seen cases where persons take their refund just because they want their cash in hand and then forfeit the employer's portion and essentially give up millions of dollars that could continue earning interest that could benefit them upon retirement. So it just depends on your situation. And this is why I also encourage saving separately, because yes, I understand that it may be difficult. You just lost a job, it's unexpected if that's a situation, but you don't necessarily want to use up those monies. I know some persons may also say they want to invest now on their own because the pension plan wasn't doing well, but then you take that money, you may invest it, yes, but then maybe 3 to 4 years down the line, you take that money and forfeit the benefit that you should have had for retirement. So it just depends. I'd recommend if you are a part of the plan, you have it remain in the plan, even if you should leave, until you can either transfer it out if you choose to, or you enroll into the retirement scheme.
You know what I'm wondering, Roxanne?
Yes.
All right, so let me put myself in the mix for a minute. I worked with an international hotel that was here in Jamaica for quite some time. I think when I was looking the other day, it said I worked there for 3 years and 10 months. Now, to be very honest with you, I don't know. I don't know what was the time for me to get vested. But I remember when I was leaving, I took the pension benefit that I could have gotten because I was moving out of town and I needed funds to, do some personal stuff. So I took those funds. If I wanted now to go back and find out, considering that hotel is no longer in Jamaica, how would I be able to find out if there was a vesting period, if I was vested, and how I would be able to transfer any funds from that scheme to the one that I'm currently contributing to? If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I understand. Okay. So if you do not have access, because I know some plans provide online access, if you had access, you should still be able to have access. Provided that the plan, even though the company may not be in Jamaica, the plan may still exist in the sense of it. While it may not have active members contributing, it may still exist as a portfolio of pension plans within Jamaica. Unless you got indication or notification that it has been wound up and all benefits paid out and so on. That's one way.
I have no clue.
If you know if the administrators are separate and you know who those administrators are, you could contact the administrator. If you know any of the trustees, you could contact the trustee. If you could also contact FSC. That may be the best place to start, possibly. But yes, you could ask, if you could find out from the FSC as well if the plan still exists, and find out about the vesting period and so on, because they would have access to what the trustee and rules state as well. So I don't know if they would maybe be the one to tell you specifically about the plan, or they will refer to the administrator and the administrator advise you in that way. But once the plan existed here in Jamaica, the FSC would have the information about it. So I think that would be what maybe the source that could have everything and answer all your questions.
And I guess I could use that methodology for all the other plans, because I think I have about 2 places that I'd like to check on to see if there is, anything available there.
I mean, you could also, so for the company, since you mentioned that if there are other companies that still exist, typically it would have been handled by your human resource department. Yes. You could still call the company and ask through HR.
Company don't exist anymore. That's the challenge.
For the other 2 as well, because you mentioned all.
No. The next one is still.
Yeah, man. So I'm referring to those. I'm referring to those that you could, for the ones that still exist, you could also speak to HR, since it's typically a benefit that is facilitated through them. Okay.
Next question. Can you please share how you used 11% per annum, as some schemes are reporting 2 to 3% return at this time? Also, is COVID-19 impacting the percentage per annum, and what is the trend projected at this time?
All right, so currently, yes, the rates would be low, but I used 11% because it's a long period of investment that I was referring to. So it's not just 1 or 2 years. COVID-19 would have impacted the economy worldwide. So overall, especially the stock market has done as is not doing as well as it did 2 years ago, for example. But other investments may be doing better. Like Jason pointed out with the mutual funds, the fixed income instruments are doing well now. So it's just an overall, because also each pension plan are they're not all invested in this, monies are not all invested in the same way. So also each pension plan is guided by a statement of investment policies and principles, which govern how they will invest the money. So the investment manager for the pension plan assesses the demographic. So we know, especially for companies, you may have persons as young as 18, 20 that are employed and part of the pension plan, persons up to 50 and so on. So depending on the demographic, it will determine how they invest the pools of money once contributed. So it depends. There are some plans, yes, that are reporting that, but there are some plans that are still doing better now. There are some plans that are now back to double digit just based on how they have invested. So I use that rate because while one particular year may not be that well, like 2020 for the most part, for most pension plans, you may have had previous years or even future years where it will be double digit, high double digit, and possibly even over 20 type of thing, because there are plans at some years in the past, and again, possibly in the future, that has done 24%, for example, 30%. So it was just to get an overall average. So where the good years, the very good years compensate for the very bad years, similar to what we would have experienced in 2020 and possibly for this year as well. So it was just an average.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, I see where somebody has a question, so I am going to unmute them and let them go ahead. Go ahead with your question. Morning, go ahead.
All right. Somewhat distracted during the presentation. Just want to make some clarification because I heard something, but I'm not sure if it was connected. Now, we spoke about pension contributions and being able to increase that contribution. Then Jason came on and spoke about some mutual funds, etc., etc. Now, I believe someone said you can speak to your HR. So is it that you can speak to your human resource regarding your contribution and instruct for something to go into some sort of mutual funds arrangement? Or am I mistaken there?
All right, you sort of just merged all the information. So yes, so the main presentation was on pensions and pensions contributions. However, we know there is a cap at 20% of your income being invested in a pension arrangement. So what Jason's discussion was about was if you have additional sums outside of that now. So this would be from your net salary. If you want to invest separately from the pension plan to assist with the income that you can get at retirement or any other investment goal that you may have. So it will be separate from the pension. But again, which I'll just repeat, we wanted to highlight it should you want to invest in excess of that, because there are some limitations based on the laws currently.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
All right, great. Thank you so much again, Roxanne, Jason, and Patricia. I see, let me see if this is a question. All right, go ahead, Roxanne, and share go ahead and share that information, and then I'll come back.
Okay, so I just wanted to show on screen the requirements to enroll in the JN Individual Retirement Scheme. I know Patricia would have listed it out, but just in case you didn't get to take the notes, it's now on screen for you to see if you're interested in enrolling until your employer or until the company can set up a formal arrangement.
It's not on the screen as yet.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I thought I shared. I was looking at it, sorry.
Okay.
Share.
All right, so I just wanna thank all three of you. That would be Roxanne, Jason, and Patricia for coming and sharing with us this morning. It was indeed an interesting and educational and informational presentation. There is so much out there for us to learn as it relates to securing our financial future, and in particular for our MSMEs who sometimes, you know, they get so busy putting the business together, and they don't think about, you know, the long-term ramifications of not having any kind of savings or investment in place for a rainy day. So we really want to thank you once again, Roxanne and company, for coming and for sharing with us this morning. Just to remind everyone that we did record this session and it will be available on our YouTube channel at JBDC Jamaica. Just go on and subscribe, and you will be notified once the presentation is available. And you will also be able to have access to the other presentations that we have done, whether it would have been from the Gift and Craft Biz Zone, from the Entrepreneur's Journey, or from our In Concert series that we had done earlier last year when we just started our online presentations. I also want to remind everyone that our JBDC offices remain open. We are at 14 Camp Road, Kingston 4. We recommend that you give us a call, 876-928-5161. Although we are under work from home, strict work from home protocols, there are still persons available at the office, but you need to give us a call to make an appointment so that you will be able to speak with the relevant person. You may also visit our website, www.jdbdc.net, and we are available on all the major social media platforms. You can also send us an email at info@jdbdc.net, and we will be able to direct you to the relevant person that you will need to speak to. So thanks again, Roxanne, Jason, and Patricia, and to everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Anzio.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.